Hi, as always, we've got our story recap for you today. So it's another chance for you to have a look at our story from Big Fish Kids Club on Thursday. And what a fantastic story it is. One of my favorite stories that reminds us all about why God puts rainbows in the sky to remind us about his promises for us. So here you go. Here's another chance for you to watch the story again. And remember, stick around till the end where I'm going to ask you a couple of questions just to make you think a little bit more about the story. So get comfy and enjoy. I've got a great story for you today that happened a couple of hundred years after last week's story. So a couple of hundred years after God had created the world and everything in it. A few hundred years actually after God had said that everything was good and perfect, that he was pleased with all he had made. But at the start of this story, God isn't so pleased. In fact, God is very, very sad. I wonder if you can think of something that might have made God sad. People arguing, people doing things that were wrong, people not listening to him. Whatever you can think of that might make God feel sad, well, it was happening. You see, the Bible says that every single person was doing the most unimaginable things wrong against God. And you see, it wasn't just some people. In fact, you see, the Bible says that boys and girls were doing things that were wrong. Mums and dads were doing things that were wrong. Grannies and granddads were doing things that were wrong. In fact, everybody, the Bible says, in the whole entire world was doing wrong and not listening to God. That is, except for, well, one man, his wife, their 3 sons, and their 3 wives, which makes 8 people altogether. But I know there's only 1, 2, 3. There's only 4 here, but the other 4 are just off the side of the picture over there. But just trust me, they're there. But you see, it was just this man, his wife, their 3 sons, and their 3 wives. They were the only people in the whole entire world who were listening to God. These people were doing what God wanted. These people weren't. These people were being nice and kind to each other. These people weren't. These people were doing all the things that they should have done. And these people weren't. And it made God really, really sad. And now the Bible tells us that one day, the man in our story was out talking to God, and God was talking to him, what we call praying. Now the Bible doesn't tell us exactly how their prayer conversation went, but I imagine it might have gone something like this. The man might have said, "Morning God, how are you today?" "I'm really, really sad," said God. "Oh no," said the man, what's wrong?" "Well, it's all the people that I've made," said God. "They're all doing things that are mean and nasty and horrible to each other. And, well, because of that, I feel really, really sad. In fact, I feel so sad that I'm even sorry that I made people." "Oh no," said the man. "That's not very good at all, is it? Well, what are you going to do about it, God?" And God said, "Well, there has to be a punishment. Because we know, don't we, boys and girls, that if we do something wrong, there's a punishment attached. If we do something wrong in school, there's a punishment attached. If we do something wrong at home, there's a punishment attached. And you know, even when you get old like me, if I do something wrong, well, there's a punishment attached to that as well." And the Bible says that whenever we do something wrong against God, there's a punishment attached. But God doesn't want that to happen. God will always, always provide a way of escape. So the man said to God, well, God, what are you going to do?" And God said, "Well, I'm going to make it rain." Now, I should have told you, shouldn't I, that up to this point, we don't actually know whether it had ever rained before. The Bible doesn't make it clear. You see, the Bible says that before that point, God had just sort of bubbled up water and watered the plants with dew, and so there might never have been rain. And so, if you think about the man in our story, hearing God saying he's going to make it rain, he's thinking, well, what's rain? I've never heard of rain before. And he said that to God, well, God, what's rain? God said, well, you know how there's like dew on the plants in the morning? Yeah. Well, imagine that, yeah, falling from the sky. Oh, okay, so that's rain, is it, God? Yeah, that's rain. Okay, so God, how long are you going to make it rain for? Are you going to make it rain for a long time? Yes, said God. What, a whole minute? No, much, much longer than that, said God. What, a whole hour? No, much, much longer than that, said God. In fact, God said it was going to rain for 40 days and 40 nights. Oh, said the man, that's going to be a lot of water. It's going to cover everything. Yes, said God, that's the plan. But don't worry, I'm going to provide a way of escape for you your wife, your 3 sons, their 3 wives, and anybody else who's willing to trust and obey me. Okay, said the man, well, what do we need to do? Now, you might have already been able to guess the name of the man in our story today. The man in our story was called Noah. And you probably know that God told him to build a great big boat called an ark. And God told Noah and his wife and their 3 sons and their 3 wives just what to do to build the ark. And this ark was going to be a way of escape, not just for Noah and his wife and their 3 sons and their 3 wives, but also for all of the animals as well, and for anybody else who was willing to turn and trust and listen to God. So as well as building the ark, Noah had to go and speak to the people and tell them that this rain was going to come and it was going to flood the entire earth, but that God was providing a way of escape by his ark. And that anybody who was willing to trust and listen to God could get into the ark and be safe. And you know, Noah went to speak to the people. And do you think the people listened to Noah? Well, they might have listened to Noah, but, well, they didn't do what Noah said. They weren't willing to follow wise advice. And you know, sometimes we're like that as well, aren't we? We sometimes listen to people, but we don't do what we've been asked to do. We don't do what we know is right. We don't follow wise advice. And the problem is, for these people, not following wise advice meant that there was going to be a punishment attached. They were going to miss out on the way of escape that God had provided. So it's important for us that when people give us wise advice and tell us important things, we listen and follow that wise advice, because otherwise we could end up in a bit of a mess just like these people. We need to listen to those that tell us about God's way of escape and how we can know that too. Well, anyway, after a while, the ark was built. And so Noah, his wife, their 3 sons and their 3 wives gathered by the ark. And there were no other people there because, well, they weren't willing to listen to God. And so, onto the ark went 2 of every animal, and a few more of some special animals that God said he wanted some more of those on the ark as well. And then Noah, his wife, their 3 sons and their 3 wives went onto the ark, and they closed the door. And you know, they were actually in there for a couple of days before it started to rain. But eventually it did start to rain. Now, the Bible doesn't tell us what happened, whether there was suddenly a little pitter-patter and it started to get heavier and heavier and heavier, or whether it was just suddenly nothing and then suddenly whoosh, and a big, huge downpour. But what we know is it rained and it rained and it rained, and the waters got higher and higher and higher until the whole earth was flooded. And Noah, his wife, their 3 sons and their 3 wives were safe upon the ark. They were snug as a bug in a rug upon the ark. But everyone else was lost because they weren't willing to listen and to trust and follow God. As I said, when we do things that are wrong, there's always a punishment attached, but God will always, always provide a way of escape. And you know, it rained for 40 days and 40 nights, just like God had said it would. And then after 40 days and 40 nights, it stopped, and there was no more rain. But it took a long, long time for the waters to eventually all drift away. But eventually they all drifted away, and the ark was on dry ground. And Noah, his wife, their 3 sons and their 3 wives could get out of the ark. And all the animals could leave the ark, and they could all be safe upon dry land again. And then God spoke to Noah and his family. And he said, I'm going to make you 2 promises. And in order that you will be able to remember my promises, I'm going to put a rainbow in the sky. So it means that whenever we see a rainbow, wherever we see it, whether it's in the sky or whether it's been in people's windows like it's been recently, or anywhere else we see a rainbow, we can remember the amazing promises that God made to Noah and his family, but not just to them, but to us as well. And you see, the first promise that God made was he said, I will never, ever flood the whole earth again. And you know, God's kept that promise. There's been little floods in different places, but they're not because of God's punishment. God has kept his promise that he's never going to flood the earth again. But God still has to find a way to punish people. And actually he said that those people who don't trust and follow him, just like those in our story, will be lost. But that God promised, the second promise he made to Noah and his family, was that he was going to provide a way of escape for everybody else. No, he wasn't going to send another ark. Instead, he was going to come to sort it himself. You see, the second promise that God made to Noah was actually that he was going to come down to earth himself as Jesus. And that Jesus, as he came to earth, was going to live a perfect life, never doing anything wrong at all, and so therefore never needing to be punished. But at the end of his life, he was punished. He was put on a cross and punished. but not because of things he'd done wrong, because as I said, he didn't do anything wrong. But he was punished for the wrong things that you and I have done. So that actually, if we turn to him and say, Jesus, I'm sorry I've messed up. I'm sorry I've done wrong. Will you please forgive me? And we put our trust in him, we can be forgiven. We can have a brand new life, a brand new start, and one day we can get to be with him forever. Because he says that actually anybody who puts their trust in him will be part of his family. And you know, the amazing thing is that boys and girls and mums and dads and people all around the world have heard this story. They've heard about what God had said, how God promised that he was going to make a way of escape through Jesus. And actually people have heard that and they've said, I want to put my trust in him too. And because they've done that, they've become part of his family. And the amazing thing is that God has said that anybody who becomes part of his family will one day get to go to his amazing and incredible home called heaven. And you know, in heaven there's going to be no pain, no sickness, no sadness. It's going to be the most amazing and incredible place. A party with God for all time. I think that's going to be the most amazing and incredible place. But you have to remember that God has said the only people who can get there are the people who listen and obey wise advice. People who turn and put their trust in him and what he did on that cross. God's way of escape for us isn't an ark, but it's actually himself. Coming, living a perfect life, and then dying for us. And so, if you've never done that, I encourage you today to turn and put your trust in Jesus. Say, Jesus, I'm sorry for all the things I've done wrong. I'm sorry for all the times I've messed up. Will you please forgive me, and will you provide me with a way of escape that I can become part of your family, that I can one day get to be with you in heaven forever, which will be the most amazing and incredible place. So that's the story of Noah and the two promises that God made to Noah and his family, but not just to them, but to us as well. Some of the most amazing and incredible promises in the whole entire Bible. So whenever you see a rainbow, always remember and think about those promises that God has made to us. Well, I hope you enjoyed that story just as much as you did the first time, if not even more. So here's a couple of questions for you this week. So the first question, God says, doesn't he, that when we do things that are wrong, there is always a punishment attached. But he will always, always provide a way of escape. What was the way of escape that God provided for Noah and his family? So number 2 then, can you remember the first promise that God made to Noah and his family? He put the rainbow in the sky and he said his first promise was that he would do what? And last question then, number 3, the second promise that God made was the way of escape for us. Can you remember what way of escape God has provided for us? A way of escape that means that we can be part of his family and one day get to be with him forever. Have a little think about those questions, chat them through with your mums, your dads, or whoever's at home with you. And if you're unsure, then always remember you can message us and we would love to help you out and tell you a little bit more about the amazing things that God has in his amazing story in the Bible. Well, I hope you enjoyed that story recap for this week, and we look forward to seeing you in Big Fish Kids Club on a Thursday. Bye.